Good morning, everyone. I am Deborah Rose with Realty One Group here in beautiful Payson, Arizona at PaysonAZproperties.com. Thank you for joining the talk show. We have a phenomenal show today. So please listen in, encourage others, like, share, ask questions. And this is going to be one of the most important shows we've done in a very long time. But first off, I want to thank Mr. Cameron Davis behind the camera of Razor Thin Media. Don't you love his fingertips? He's an awesome gentleman, his son Chaz. Without them, I would not be doing this show. So a gratitude of great thanks to you, gentlemen. So we're going to dive right in. I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Tom Gallagher and Keven Rush of the Payson Police Department. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you here. You guys have been working really hard on a project, and I'm just going to let you take over and tell them a little bit about this program, why you created it, and why it's important to the general public to know about this.
Okay, the whys, under the direction of Payson Police Chief Ron Tischer and Payson Fire Chief Mr. David Staub, their idea was to create a community risk reduction program here in Payson. So the marching orders were given to myself and Officer Rush, and we've been working on this for quite a while. Now you might say, what is community risk reduction? Well, really, we look at community risk reduction, that is a process. It's a process of identifying and prioritizing all of the hazards within the community that police and fire typically run on. And after identifying those hazards and the priorities, put forth a strategic effort to bring forth the resources to reduce the impact and the occurrence of those hazards here in the community. So very, very important community. We have some unique challenges up here. Now, what we have done relative to identifying and prioritizing them, we took data from our records management system, and then some really anecdotal data from all the fire crews, all three shifts, all the crews out there, as to what is the types of calls are they running on, the most frequent types of calls. Very interesting to hear what all three shifts had to say, basically the same thing. Now with that, we've been able to identify those hazards, of which we're seeing a lot of out there, and we dove right into coming up with a plan to help educate the citizens here into how we might be able to reduce the occurrence of those injuries and illnesses, and then also the impacts there. And we've done that actually in a pretty nice way. Officer Rush will be talking about specifically how we're going to deliver those in a little bit, but I would like to just show the folks out there what we've been able to create here. Home health and safety for Payson residents. This is a community risk reduction program. And you see on the inside here, we've got various fact sheets that are very important to reducing the occurrence and the impact here. For instance, COVID. Obviously, last year and a half or so, crews were running on a lot of flu calls, COVID calls, things like that. And so we've got a fact sheet here relative to differentiating between the myths and the facts surrounding the COVID discussions out there, specifically some prevention techniques that folks can use to minimize their exposure to. Heart problems, obviously, with the elderly community like we have up here, we're going to have cardiac problems. We see those quite a bit. Again, we've got a good fact sheet that identifies some of the problems, the facts coming out of the American Heart Association, some signs and symptoms, and then also some preventative techniques that folks can use to minimize the progression of that disease. The same with respiratory problems, because we're at elevation up here. We continue to see respiratory problems, specifically lower respiratory problems that continue to cause problems for us up here. Again, we've got some really good facts about that, some signs and symptoms, some slight behavioral changes that folks can make to minimize the continuation or the progression of that disease process. Obviously, diabetes is going to be one with an elderly population up here. We dove into that quite a bit. Same thing, some facts and figures, some things that folks can do to minimize the impact there. And then medication, drug interaction. We continue to have problems with those. Folks, for instance, forget to take a pill in the morning, then they take one later in the day mixed with others. It causes a reaction. They call 911. We have to respond out there and deal with that. So again, a bunch of really good information about how to minimize the occurrence there. And then over here on the left, we've got a couple other things, interesting folks. That one thing we see up here, the most frequent calls we see up here are ground level fall injuries. And those are absolutely preventable injuries, of which we'd like to get through to the citizens with a little bit of education, things that you can do to minimize the potential for those particular falls. And then also kitchen and fire safety, that always continues to be a problem, especially during the holidays. Some facts about that, some things that are typical that we see that you can do to help prevent the occurrence of those type of things. So we put together some really good information that we really would like to share with our citizens out there to hopefully minimize the impact that these type of hazards have on them. So we're looking forward to getting it out into the citizens.
That's awesome. Is the overall goal then to help educate the community so the call volume slows down or drops? Is that one of the goals?
Well, yes, absolutely, Deborah. Thank you for asking that, because that is one of our goals, to be able to minimize the occurrence so it doesn't have to happen. Call volumes, we're on duty 24/7. Call us if you need us. But relative to having an impact out there, we really would like to have an impact. Just a couple of things, a couple of behavioral modifications that you can do to minimize the chance of you having an emergency situation where you have to call us.
Okay, I know this may sound like a dumb question, but I see it on these community chains, these little quorums that you see online. Are people falling because they're trying to get up on ladders to change the batteries in their smoke detectors?
You know, it's interesting you say that. Absolutely is the answer. Matter of fact, when I leave here today, I'm going to go put one in for my neighbor. Okay, that she does. I cautioned her, do not climb up on that ladder. I'll be over there after I get done here today to change out her battery. That certainly is a problem. Folks, unstable balance, climb up on a ladder, even more unstable, down they go. Or worse yet, I shouldn't say so much worse yet, but the frequency, ground level falls. They're tripping. For instance, folks get out of bed, they trip over the cat or the dog. They don't have a light down the hallway, and they trip on something that's in the hallway. Or they have non-skid, or they do not have non-skid throw rugs, for instance. They hit, the rug goes out from underneath them. Or they step out of the shower and they slip because they have wet feet, down they go. Those are typical. Those are absolutely preventable types of incidents that we hope to have an impact on.
Fantastic. Wow, really good. All right, let's segue into Officer Rush. What do you have for us,
Well,
Kevin?
one of the things is Tim's talking about all the educating the public and talking to everybody is one thing, but being able to go out and show them how to apply these to the residents is a totally different thing. So that's a big part of this program, and kind of where it started was in how do we get out to the home and go through and kind of do an assessment. Let's take a look at every residence. Every residence is individual. Every residence is different. Every person's property is different. So how can we get out there and actually get in and give some real-time, real-world advice as far as, hey, these are some things that you can do. This is what we have identified. And so as we've gone through this, a big part of this is being able to set up appointments with us to come to a person's residence and do an assessment, both from the fire side and looking at the safety and the fall issues and the as well as like fire deterrence and all those things, and then also looking at home safety and security from a law enforcement standpoint. How do we make a residence less attractive to criminals than other residences? How do we make the neighborhood less attractive than other neighborhoods? And finally, how do we make Payson as a whole less attractive to criminals from other towns? And really, that's kind of what we wanted to be able to do. It's one thing to tell people that, it's another to be able to show people how to do that. And so that's what this is a big part of this, is being able to go out and have us show up at the residence and show them how they can do this, not just as their home, but also as their neighborhood. And so maybe we work with HOAs and POAs and different groups in town to go out and really help establish some of those practices, those safe practices throughout their community.
Can you give us an example of making your home less attractive to a break-in?
Yeah, absolutely. So with really it starts from the outside in. So we go through what's called a Septet Evaluation as a part of this. It's crime prevention through environmental design. And so we look at the residence and as well as the adjoining properties and the front and backyard, side yards, all those things. How do we make this property less attractive to a criminal? So there's some basic ideas. What are some ways that you can design the foliage and the landscaping around the house to make it so that criminals don't have a place to hide? How can we keep it beautiful and enjoy we live in Payson, so everything's got pine trees and manzanita bushes. Lots of places. One of our big issues up here is the transient population, especially in the summertime. We're coming into that time of the year where the transient population explodes up here, and the simple reason is because they can camp out almost anywhere in town. It's really hard to find them because of the denseness of our forest. So what are ways that you can make your property less attractive to that group? Well, it simply comes to going through and looking at a landscaping design that doesn't allow for hidden areas. And so we start from outside in, work from landscaping, looking at walkways, ways to light your walkways. We look at, then getting into the house, we talk about, what are the appropriate types of locks to have on your doors? How do you lock your windows sufficiently and appropriately? How do you light those areas? And that's a big deal up here. Lighting is huge as far as keeping your area unattractive to crime. Criminals don't like to be seen because then they get caught. So how do you do that but still not infringe on your neighbors? We talk about light trespass a lot in Payson. So how can we arrange your lighting so that it's effective from a crime prevention standpoint, but still is still respectful of the neighbors and their darkness? And so how do we set that up? And so what kinds of lights are best to use? What are some hoods that you can put on lights in different areas to make sure that it lights and illuminates the appropriate areas? So that's something we do on a case-by-case basis. We get out to the home, we look at what you have, and then we look at how we can maybe improve on that. We look at target hardening for like security cameras and things like that. Don't give recommendations on security cameras. We're a service organization, so we don't go out and tell you, hey, buy this, buy that. But we definitely can tell you where to go to make some good selections. Where we really help out is, once you get a product, how do you install that, and where do you want to point your cameras? How do you make sure that your home is protected, but it's also visible for the areas around your home? Because that's where you're going to see a lot of that traffic. And so that's where we get a chance to come in and work with the homeowners on how they can develop the residence as a whole, as well as the neighborhood, on being in an area that's just not an area that criminals are going to want to be in, because crime there is not going to be effective for them.
That's a lot of work, and what a great value you're providing for the community. I think it's important, a couple of notes to get this word out to the general public. Without you personally going to every single home that you're called to. So talk to us a little bit about how people are going to be able to find you, what they should be doing, how to contact you, and wouldn't it be nice if it'd be nice to do a neighborhood education instead of just doing one house. I'm all about leveraging, because when you go into a program this large, it's so great. Are you going to give people also an opportunity to help you, volunteers, people to help you handle the load that I'm sure you're going to get because of this phenomenal program?
If I may jump right quick
Sure.
here, one of the things on the back here, you see, really this program is about neighbors helping out neighbors, watching out for your neighbors, okay, and then helping them, especially the elderly population that we have up here. So we would like to take this out, for instance, the HOAs, and those people that are willing to step up and be guardians of their neighborhood, watching out for their neighbors in particular, those kind of things, we're going to try to leverage, as in your words, leverage their desire to help out their neighbors and have an impact on this. Go ahead, I kind of stepped on that.
No, that's perfect. And that's exactly where I was going with that. A lot of this is we have only so many officers in town. We are only 2 people. So there's a lot of times that while officers are taking calls here and there, we're not necessarily up and down your street. We do have a strong volunteer program, and are always interested in sitting down and talking to people about maybe a role that they can play in that. But a lot of this is giving people in our community the knowledge and the ability on how to help to police their neighborhood. Because you're not calling us when a crime is occurring is one thing, but being able to work together to avoid that crime from the beginning is always proactivity is always a much better approach, and you see fewer victims with that. And so a part of this is getting together with neighborhoods, POAs, HOAs, getting together with town organizations and talking about ways that they can organize to protect their area. And then, of course, coming out and helping to mentor them through that process. We can't be in your neighborhood every night. Hopefully, with no crime. We're not there every night, but we're able to really bring up the community in a way that they're able to take a role in their neighborhood to help do that themselves.
Very good. Do you have a website that people can go to get more information on this?
You never ask. Absolutely. Tim, go ahead. Why don't you tell them about the website?
The website, www.paysonguardians.com. You can go there right now. That's a live website, and you can get this information that I shared with you earlier. We'll be posting other things on that website as we continue to expand here. But yes, we do have a website that we can go to get more information about this.
Fantastic.
If I might jump in, another thing that we're in process of developing and have initiated, we're not complete with it yet, but there's a virtual block watch program that we actually became aware of through Phoenix Police Department. They've been using it for a number of years, been incredibly successful for them, that we started developing with their help with Payson Police Department. Through a third party organization, neighbors are able to register their surveillance, or not their surveillance cameras because it's an anonymous deal, but they're able to register that they're willing to participate in the program, again with a third party. When we have, let's say in a certain block during the summer, usually starting about 6 o'clock in the morning, we'll start getting calls from a neighborhood where a group of people have gone through and burglarized vehicles. Probably our largest burglary crime during the summer months. And we'll get first one house and then another and another. By 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning, we've got 4, 5, 6, 8 houses in that neighborhood that have been burglarized. One of the things that's difficult is that all happens at 2 o'clock in the morning when everybody's sleeping. But with the availability of technology and with some of the recent kind of progression of the Ring cameras and things like that that show not just the front patio area but also the streets, you're able to register again through a third party. We draw what's called a geofence around the area that we're interested in. That third party sends out an email to the group. We don't know who it's going to. We just know that there are people in that area that have registered. Those people are then have the opportunity to save, say, from 2 to 4 o'clock and send it to the third party, who then provide us with the videos. The really cool thing about that is a lot of times we know the people that do most. This is that same 10% of the population that commits most of the crimes. And so we get that out, we spread it out through all of our departments and anybody in an attempt to identify those individuals. Because you see them, maybe they didn't burglarize your house, but they did three cars down. We might see them walking through your past your house in the front, or walking through the side yard, and that allows us to identify who's involved. A lot of times, again, we're able to, hey, I know that guy, kind of thing. And so it allows us to really, the community to take a very proactive and really active role once crime occurs in identifying the criminals and holding them accountable for those acts that they've committed. And it again helps us to get property and products back to the victims. And so that's a big thing. We've got it initially up and running. We're still waiting to get our new website up and going, so we'll have an icon there. But in just a matter of another month or two, anybody in Payson will be able to register for that online. Again, completely anonymous. We don't have access to cameras. We don't have access to anything, but we're able to request help from neighborhoods that have found themselves victims of those crimes.
That is incredible. That's brilliant.
Very cool.
That's leveraging.
Yeah.
That makes your job easier.
Yeah,
and that
so.
puts some people to work, especially the nosy neighbors. Like, if you're going to be nosy, at least get a camera to help out the Payson Police Department, right? I think that's incredible. So I have to give kudos to the man behind the camera again, because he's the one that developed the website, Cameron Davis and Chaz. Aren't they incredible?
Yes.
And he helped design these beautiful folders. And
he is the one. Yep.
It's really amazing what you're doing. Are there any other thoughts that you have that would help, for instance, like people will want to get in front of you, and do you plan on any kind of speaking engagements to the general public? Do you have an agenda yet, or is that coming soon?
Actually, we started. We just started last Saturday. Was our first one, speaking to a good-sized homeowners association. We are available to come out and make presentations similar as this right here, just overview of the program to HOAs or other groups like the Veterans Group or the Realtors Group or the Chamber Group, whatever it might be. We'll be glad to come out and talk about this, because we see this as being a very valuable resource and service that we're going to provide for the citizens of Payson. So we'd love to get the word out. Officer Russ has the phone number, the website. You can make contact with us and request a visit presentation, even if it's one-on-one in your home. Okay, we'll be more than glad to do that. But yes, we are available if folks want us to come and speak about it.
Okay.
And also, the more this works better, the more people that get involved, and that's true with anything. And so, really, any opportunity around our, obviously I'm still working patrol, doing my things, but any opportunity we have to speak to the public, we're going to take. Really, because we want to get the word out, and then we're going to take the time to do the home visits. We're training up some others, other officers, other firemen, and some volunteers to aid in that. We don't want it to be, we don't want 100 people to call and we have to tell them it's 3 months down the road. We want to get out there as expeditiously as possible.
Right.
And so we've got that going. This is kind of the first step for us, is getting the word out there and then getting a chance to really get in front. It's one thing to talk on camera and do those things, but it's another to be able to sit down with a group of 5 to 50 people and just let them know and answer questions, and then give them a chance to say, that sounds good. I'd really like to have you come in and take a look at that. We're looking at, and really, it's not a long process. A couple hours. We get in. Both the fire does their job, police do their job, give you your recommendations and answer questions, and then we're out. And we just want to make sure that this is something that's available to the entire community, Payson, Star Valley, and surrounding communities, because truly, the more people that get involved from a crime prevention and health and safety prevention standpoint, the more effective any program is going to be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so
if I may, Deborah,
Yes.
here's a unique thing, and this is one of the things we recognize as an opportunity here. Fire and police have a very unique role in the community. And of course, our citizens trust us. Very interesting. I found throughout my career, matter of fact, I've said that very often, I think we're about the only group out there in our society that can knock on the front door, and all I have to do is say, fire department, and they say, come in. They don't even ask. They just say, come in. And so, of course, that is a whole lot of trust that they put in us. Of course, that brings with it a whole lot of responsibility on our part to not abuse any of that. But we see that as a unique opportunity to see the folks in their home and to recognize if we've got some challenges that this program may benefit from. We do have a lot of, as you well know, elderly folks here, widows, widowers, that sometimes are very depressed, despondent. We have an opportunity to look at that. Mental health issues are a huge issue in every community out there. We intend to address that as well, identify folks that might be hurting, get them plugged into the proper resources. The bottom page on the right over here is Payson Community Resources. So
Can I pull one out
Oh,
so
absolutely.
people
Yes,
can
ma'am.
get an idea?
Absolutely.
There's
Yes.
actually a lot of very valuable information on each of these cards. So
Yes.
that is really neat. What a great resource there.
So we have that available if they want to contact whichever resource might be most fitting for them. We've got names, phone number, and what exactly those services provide there. So again, we're really looking forward to getting out into the community and hopefully having an impact on some of the challenges we're seeing.
Okay, so now that you said that, my concern is now a scammer may use what you just said to violate somebody. So now that you just said fire department and they just say, come on in, be careful now. Don't just blindly believe someone on another side of a door that says fire department. We are seeing high levels of scammers, and they're hitting most people through the internet. I know for a fact that they're also, sometimes when they call you on the phone, they're actually recording your voice. Then they splice your words together. They use that, and then they go to an elderly couple and put together a scam that's where they hear their child's voice and piece it together enough where they believe what they're hearing and send us money because I'm in jail kind of thing. The internet's horrible. Someone just used my name yesterday to scam someone out of $1,200. Okay, number one, my name is Golden. And sometimes people will use that to their advantage because I am a trustworthy person. People have to be really careful now on who they let in, who they believe, especially on the phone. Are you going to be addressing this at some point?
It's great that you asked that question. We just had this conversation with Chief Tisher and some others dealing with frauds, especially internet frauds and phone frauds, is also part of this visit. Although there's not an assessment in that part of it. But as far as the education that we're providing as a part of the feedback after the assessment, a big part is fraud education, not clicking on text messages from Amazon and following that link to give it your information. What do you need to do? You need to, that there's an issue, then you don't click on it. You look up the Amazon website, you get their phone number, you do it all appropriately. We have an incredible incidence of fraudulent activity, not originating here in Payson, but the victims are here in Payson. They originate somewhere else in the world. Those are really difficult to track down, to trace. Obviously, we have federal bureaus that work with that. The Attorney General's office deals with a lot of those things, and they're very hard to trace down. And we don't have a lot of resources on that level here in Payson. So our best way to fight that crime is public information and knowledge and understanding. And so a part of this package is to explain to them, hey, these are some dangers. A lot of times when you look at somebody that's in 60, 70, 80, 50, we didn't grow up in an age where this was normal. We didn't grow up in the information age. We didn't grow up with computers. I didn't grow up with a cell phone. And so the awareness of our elderly population, they don't understand how that can be used against them. And so part of our job is to educate on all number of safe practices, and from a crime prevention standpoint, that's going to be one of them. Is what do you need to make sure that you're doing or not doing with your computers, with your internet service, with your text messages, with your emails, to make sure that you do not become a victim of a crime. And we can, we'll give some common examples, but crime is very innovative. And when we get information out on one crime, and people that gets hardened a little bit, criminals go to something else. And so part of this is just teaching some basic practices that can really limit your exposure to those criminal activities. A lot of times it just means hanging up the phone. If you don't know who's calling, don't answer just hang up the phone. Exactly. Same thing with emails, So we'll go through a lot of that with them and show ways that they can really protect themselves from those kinds of crimes.
We have a question from Cameron, from the audience.
So this is really more geared towards you two professionals, but
sure.
Where does your motivation come from to be a light in this community? And you are both heroes, and who is your hero?
That's a lot of questions.
Wow.
I'll start with my motivation. I grew up here. I graduated from Payson High School. I couldn't wait to get out of the city, little town. I got out and saw some of the rest of the world. By the time I graduated college and got married and had kids, I spent most of my professional life trying to figure out a way to get back to this community. It wasn't until my 3 older boys graduated that I was able to do that. So a lot of my motivation, this is the community that I love, that I endear, and where I've chosen to spend the last years of my career years trying to do what I can to make it a safer place. And so, it's funny when Tim came into the police department a couple of years ago. He's a retired fireman out of the Phoenix area, and so he was like, hey, I want to get involved in your volunteer program, but I really want to do some block watch stuff. And Chief Tischer said, well, that sounds great. We don't have really a block watch yet, but Kevin's been bugging me about it for a couple of years, so why don't you guys get together and figure this out? And it's given us both an opportunity to really be very creative, and the chiefs have been really good about, hey, think outside the box, do what you need to do, and be creative, and let's see what we can do to make this service work. And so, honestly, that's where my heart and love kind of comes from for the community. You can talk about your side.
That's said, man. You said well, dude. Mine is just straight. I realized a long time ago I'm here to be in service. From the earliest days, my military service, to my career in public safety service, to after I retired, it's community service, helping out. And like Officer Rush said, when I had an opportunity, I went down to the police department, sat with the chief, talked about volunteering. He discussed block watch, and I happened to have a little experience with that. And he assigned me to work with Officer Rush here, and we've been on this road ever since. And so it has morphed from just block watch into this community risk reduction effort that's really expanded. We think is going to do great things for the town of Payson, for sure.
Phenomenal things. So that question or that statement was right on, and the world needs more people like you gentlemen, and we certainly appreciate everything that you're doing for our community, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of like-minded people that want to join the ranks and volunteer and help make this a safer place, because God knows people are looking for safety, less fear,
Yes.
and oftentimes they do retreat to the rural areas. And I didn't mean to insult anyone by saying nosy neighbor. Sometimes it's good to be a nosy neighbor. You want to notice things that look abnormal. You want to watch out for your neighbor. You want to have their backs. And I just want to thank you for having our backs. And once again, we just want to tell people in closing that there is a website up called PaysonGuardians.com. There's also a phone number, 928-472-5060. And these folders are going to be available soon now. So in closing, gentlemen, why don't you tell people right now, are they able to pick something like this up from you yet? Or is it maybe 30 days out?
They can pick them up if they get on the website and request one. We're going to get in contact with them. Call the phone number. If I'm not available, if the phone rings at the desk there at the PD, then we'll definitely get back to them, and then we'll find out. Okay, what are they looking for? Are they looking for a home visit? Are they looking just to get the information? Are they looking for us to come give a presentation to their organization? Whatever the need is, we're there to meet that need at the level that they're looking for. And so, by connecting to us through either one of those modes, is going to get that taken care of for them.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Remember that this video will be posted. Cameron, is it going to be posted to their site as well? Or maybe
Could
not?
be.
It'll
I
be
think if they share it.
if they share it, yeah. So this video is an educational video, and people can find it on YouTube. It'll be archived to PaysonAZProperties.com under the year 2022. And
we'll get a link up on our Facebook page
and
also.
they will get the Payson
Or
Police
however we do
Department.
it. Yeah.
Payson PD will also have a link with this video. So please notify your neighbors, share this video. It's very helpful information. And you two gentlemen are heroes. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for being on the talk show. Thanks again, Cameron Davis, and we'll see you next month. Have a great week.